You feel it every time you tap your card. The cost of living isn't just rising, it's being engineered. They told you it's just supply and demand. But what if the inflation eating your savings is actually a hidden tax? 50 years ago, a secret handshake in the desert changed the rules of the global economy forever. We are living inside the petrodollar system, an empire kept afloat not by gold, but by an ocean of debt. It's a geopolitical mechanism designed to siphon your labor to fund wars you never voted for. Your purchasing power isn't vanishing by accident. It represents a transfer of wealth so vast, it's almost invisible. From the gas pump to the Pentagon, discover the hidden economic mechanisms that control your financial reality. I'm going to pull back the curtain on the heist of the century. The trap is breaking open, and you need to see the pattern. This is the Petrodollar Puzzle. Connect the dots before the bill comes due.
Yesterday, you paid more at the gas pump. Last week, more for groceries. Next month, your rent goes up. Again. You're told it's just the economy. But what if the reason your life is getting more expensive has nothing to do with supply and demand, and everything to do with a secret handshake made in the middle of the Arabian desert 50 years ago? What if I told you that the money in your wallet isn't backed by gold, or silver, or even the faith of the government, but by a hidden tax, a global scheme designed to keep an empire afloat on an ocean of debt? Most people believe their purchasing power is a natural law. It's not. It's a project. For 5 decades, you have been a silent participant in the most brilliant and ruthless financial trap ever set. They call it the petrodollar. Historians call it a geopolitical miracle. But for you, it's an invisible vacuum, siphoning your labor to fund wars you never voted for, and deficits that should have crashed the system years ago. But here is the kicker. For the first time in history, the trap is breaking open. The recycling is stopping. And if you don't understand what's coming next, you're the one who's going to be left holding the bill. Stay with me, because the next 10 minutes will fundamentally change how you see every dollar you ever earn. Before we pull back the curtain on the exact files that explain this heist, I need to be honest with you. This is the story Wall Street doesn't want discussed on the evening news. In a 1975 Treasury report that almost nobody read, the blueprints for your diminishing savings were already laid out. Channels that dig this deep, that question where trillions actually go, do not survive on ad revenue alone. The algorithm doesn't favor the truth, it favors distraction. So, if this conversation resonates with you, if you feel that uncomfortable truth vibrating in your own life, hit that like button and subscribe. It's the only way we keep this investigation alive. Now, be honest with yourself. Do you feel like your dollar buys more or less today than it did 4 years ago? Drop the word inflation in the comments if you're feeling the squeeze. Let's get it on the record, together. Now, I want to go even deeper into this, because understanding how we got here changes everything about how you see the dollar in your pocket today. The system we're living under didn't appear overnight. It was built, brick by brick, deliberately, over decades, by people who understood one fundamental truth. War is the single most profitable enterprise in human history. Not because of what it destroys, but because of what it demands. To truly understand the magnitude of the heist, we have to travel back to what I call Moment Zero. The year is 1971. August 15th. Imagine the scene. President Richard Nixon appears on television screens across the nation and, with a stroke of a pen, kills the gold standard. Before that moment, the dollar wasn't just a piece of green paper backed by faith. It was a claim check. Every $20.67 in paper could be legally exchanged for 1 ounce of physical gold. Gold was the leash that kept the politicians honest. It was the physical limit on how much debt they could create. But in that heartbeat in 1971, the leash was cut. The world's safest currency became an IOU with no collateral. It was just paper. The world began to panic. Why hold dollars if they can't be traded for gold? The US was facing a currency collapse that would have ended its superpower status overnight. But then, 1973 hit. The Yom Kippur War triggered a massive oil embargo. Oil prices quadrupled almost instantly. Cars lined up for miles at gas stations. The American economy was crashing, and fear was the only thing being traded on the streets. But inside the White House, they didn't see a tragedy. They saw an opportunity. They needed a new anchor to replace gold. Something the world couldn't live without. If the dollar couldn't be as good as gold, they would make it as necessary as oil. This wasn't an accident. It was a project. A deliberate architecture built to ensure that even if America stopped producing, the world would never stop paying. This transformation changed the very fabric of American fiscal policy. It was the birth of what I call the invisible tax, a mechanism where your purchasing power is silently transferred to corporations and banks that profit regardless of whether the system thrives or fails. Governments at war will borrow any amount, pay any interest rate, and mortgage their entire future just to survive the present moment. And the people who control that credit? They become more powerful than kings. The system you live under today was born in that chaos. A design where your hard-earned money is tied to a barrel of crude in a desert half a world away. It is a perpetual money machine. And you, the taxpayer, are the one funding it. You're paying taxes so that your government can hire experts to tell them how to spend your taxes. It is a system that requires blood to stay solvent. If you're starting to see how the pieces fit, if you can feel the weight of this architecture, drop a comment and write, "I see the pattern." Think about how your fear has been weaponized into a business model. This isn't just about history or old policy. It is about the silent mechanism that controls your life every single day. The system doesn't need your consent. It just needs your silence. And it secures that silence by making sure you are always just afraid enough to keep paying without asking the wrong questions. Here is the psychological trap they've perfected over decades. Every time you turn on the news and hear about a new threat, a rising adversary, or a terror cell plotting in the shadows, you are not just being informed, you are being primed. You are being conditioned to accept that massive defense budgets are non-negotiable, that cutting military spending is somehow unpatriotic, and that questioning where trillions of dollars actually go is dangerous or naive. This is not an accident, it is a strategy. In the corporate world, they call it monthly recurring revenue. You create a product people think they can't live without, and they pay for it, forever. In the world of the petrodollar, they've created a threat people think they can't survive without protection from, and the payment never stops. In July 1974, Treasury Secretary William Simon, a man who understood the language of debt better than anyone, was sent to Saudi Arabia on a secret mission. His orders from Nixon were clear. Do not come back empty-handed. The deal he struck became the engine of the modern world. The US offered the House of Saud absolute military protection and weapons. In exchange, the Saudis agreed to price their oil exclusively in US dollars and take those surplus billions and recycle them back into buying US Treasury debt. This created what I call artificial demand. Since every country on Earth needs oil to survive, every nation was forced to hoard US dollars just to keep the lights on. Think about the genius and the evil of this glitch in the economic matrix. If Japan or Germany wants energy, they have to manufacture goods to earn those dollars. But the United States? We just print the paper to buy the oil. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. A government cuts its own capacity to save money in the short term, which creates a capability gap, which forces them to hire private consultants and contractors to fill that gap, further eroding the ability to govern. This is the locked door. You can see it. You can feel it. But the moment you try to open it, every alarm in the system goes off. You are told you're putting everyone at risk. While the people profiting from this structure are the same ones rotating between government positions and corporate executive suites. It's not corruption in the traditional sense. It's just how the machine was designed to run. It runs on your tax dollars, your purchasing power, and your belief that this is all somehow necessary. Every time you hear that we need to stay vigilant, what you're really hearing is the sound of wealth being transferred from your future to someone else's quarterly earnings report. If you're starting to see the invisible walls of this prison, drop a comment and write, "The fear is the product." Let's put aside the philosophy and look at the receipt. Because in the world of high finance, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Someone always pays. When they say the defense budget is $800 billion, your brain can't process that. It's too big. It's abstract. But that budget is $1 that could have fixed a bridge in your town, funded a school in your neighborhood, or lowered your taxes. When you see how much of that money simply vanishes, it stops being about policy and starts being about theft. The Department of Defense has failed its financial audit for 6 consecutive years. They cannot account for over $3.8 trillion in assets. Read that again. Nearly $4 trillion. Gone. With no explanation, no accountability, and no consequences. In any other industry, this would be investigated as fraud. Executives would be in handcuffs. Companies would be shut down. But in this sector, it's just Tuesday. Business as usual. The money flows. The contracts get signed. And nobody asks where it all went. The Pentagon has been caught paying over $10,000 for a metal washer that you can buy at a hardware store for $13. They paid $1,678 for a single nut, worth 32 cents. These are not mistakes. These are not isolated incidents. This is a feature of the system. It is a mechanism designed to transfer public tax money into private hands, without anyone watching. They call it cost-plus contracting, where companies get paid based on how much they spend, not on what they deliver. There is no incentive to be efficient. There is every incentive to bloat, to delay, to complicate. Because the more it costs, the more they make. They use what insiders call the ghost budget, classifying military spending as emergency supplementals to bypass oversight. And when the government doesn't have the cash to cover it, the Federal Reserve steps in and prints more money. That newly printed money doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It dilutes the value of every dollar you already have. It is inflation by design. You are not just paying for these wars through your taxes. You are paying for them every time you go to the grocery store and notice that your paycheck doesn't stretch as far as it used to. The reason your savings lose value. The reason housing feels unaffordable. The reason everything costs more but your wages stay flat. It is all tied to a system that requires endless spending on conflicts that never end. The people profiting from this aren't the soldiers risking their lives. They are the executives, the shareholders, the lobbyists, and the politicians who rotate between government office and corporate boardrooms like it's a career track. It is the erosion of trust, the normalization of waste, and the quiet acceptance that this is just how things work. If this is clicking for you, drop a comment and write, "Follow the money." Imagine a pyramid, and once you see the structure, you can't unsee it. This isn't a conspiracy. It is a business model hiding in plain sight. At the bottom, you have the taxpayers, the people funding the entire operation without really understanding where their money goes. In the middle, government officials who approve the budgets and sign the contracts. And at the top, a small group of corporations and financial institutions that capture the majority of the wealth. This isn't theory. It is documented reality. Just 5 companies control the majority of defense spending in the United States: Lockheed Martin, RTX, Boeing, General Dynamics, and Northrop Grumman. Between them, they received over $770 billion in contracts in just 5 years, more than the GDP of most countries. But it gets darker. It's not just that these companies are making money. It is how deeply embedded they are in the decision-making process itself. There is a term for it: the revolving door. Between 2008 and 2018, nearly 400 high-ranking Pentagon officials left their government positions and immediately went to work for the exact same defense contractors they had been awarding contracts to. Generals retire on a Friday and start collecting paychecks from missile manufacturers on Monday. Former Secretary of Defense officials become board members at Raytheon. Deputy Assistant Secretaries become lobbyists for Lockheed Martin. This creates a situation where the people making strategic military decisions aren't asking, "What keeps us safe?" They are asking, "What keeps the contracts flowing?" Because their future income depends on it. Their stock options depend on it. Their entire post-government career depends on maintaining the system exactly as it is. This is a mutual extortion racket. The government needs the expertise of industry insiders, so they hire former executives, while corporations need access to government decision makers, so they hire former officials. Once you are inside that loop, your incentive isn't to win wars quickly or avoid them altogether. Your incentive is to make sure the pipeline never shuts off. Every delayed project is more consulting fees. Every cost overrun is more profit. Every new threat assessment is another reason to greenlight the next $100 billion weapon system. And Wall Street loves every second of it. Defense stocks consistently outperform the market during periods of geopolitical tension. Investors don't profit from peace. They profit from instability. If your doctor made more money the longer you stayed sick, you'd question every diagnosis. But when it comes to national security, we are told to trust the system without asking who profits from keeping us afraid. The people making the decisions are often the same people who will be cashing checks from the companies that benefit. It is not corruption in the traditional sense. It is structural. It is legal. And that is what makes it so dangerous. If you are connecting the dots, drop a comment and write, "The system is the scam." Awareness without action is just frustration. And I'm not going to lie to you. One person cannot dismantle a trillion-dollar machine overnight. But what you can do is stop participating in it blindly. You can start making decisions with your eyes open. And when enough people do that, the system starts to crack. The first step is demanding transparency. Right now, the Pentagon operates with almost zero accountability. Failing audits year after year with no consequences. Support movements like Audit the Pentagon. Make it a litmus test for the politicians you vote for. If a federal agency cannot account for trillions of dollars, its funding should be frozen until it can. That is not radical. That is basic accountability. Push for legislation that limits the revolving door. Laws that prevent former government officials from immediately lobbying for the same companies they were supposed to be regulating. Some of these bills already exist, but they need public pressure to actually pass. Second, and this is something you can do today, vote with your wallet. Most people have no idea what's inside their retirement accounts. You contribute to a 401k or an ETF, and you assume it's just a diversified basket of stocks. But if you actually open the holdings, there is a good chance you are funding the exact companies we've been talking about. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman. Your money is being used to buy shares in corporations that profit from conflict. Every time those stocks go up because tensions rise somewhere in the world, you are technically benefiting from that instability. Take 15 minutes and check what you are actually invested in. If you see those names and it doesn't sit right with you, look for funds that exclude defense contractors. They exist. You just have to look for them. This isn't about being political. It's about being intentional with where your money goes. Third, and maybe most important, develop a healthy skepticism toward the narratives you are fed. Every time the news starts beating the war drums, every time a new enemy is introduced, ask yourself one question: who benefits from this? Who is the vendor for this conflict? What companies are about to see their stock prices jump? What think tanks funded by defense contractors are writing the policy papers that justify intervention? Recognizing the sales pitch is the best way to avoid buying the product. This is the mindset shift that changes everything. You stop being a passive participant in a system that uses your fear and your tax dollars to enrich a small group, and you start becoming someone who sees through it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every headline, every budget debate, every military intervention starts to look different. You start to notice the patterns. You recognize the language. And that awareness, shared widely enough, is the beginning of real transformation. If you are ready to stop funding what you don't believe in, drop a comment and write, "I'm taking control." If you have watched this far, you are not here by accident. Most people will scroll past this kind of content because it is uncomfortable. It challenges the story we have been told our entire lives. But you stayed, you listened, and you followed the thread all the way to the end. That tells me something important about you. You are not looking for easy answers or comforting lies. You are looking for the truth, even when it's hard to hear. Eisenhower warned us decades ago about the disastrous rise of misplaced power. He saw this coming. And today, that power is more entrenched than ever, hiding behind classified budgets, failed audits, and a media that never asks the right questions. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. You are now part of a different conversation, part of the group that refuses to stay asleep. So here is what I want from you. If this video connected with you, if it made something click that you couldn't quite put into words before, hit that subscribe button. This channel exists to pull back the curtain on systems that don't want to be seen, and your support is what keeps it going. Drop a like if this was worth your time, and most importantly, let me know you are with me. Comment below with the phrase, "I see the machine." I want to know who is awake, who is paying attention. And if you want to keep going down this path, if you want to understand how this same logic of control applies to the currency in your pocket and the banks that manage it, there is a video right here that connects those dots. It picks up where this one leaves off, exposing the same financial players and how they manipulate your daily reality. Click it, and I'll see you there.